Hi, and welcome back to the last segment of Classical Coffee for April, leading up to our concert this Saturday at the Zeiterion at 8 p.m., April 13th. And today we're going to talk about the last piece on the program, which is Sir Edward Elgar's Variations on an Original Theme, also known as the Enigma Variations. The Enigma Variations are certainly his most famous piece, and the concept of the Enigma has fascinated both the public and musicologists for quite some time. Over 100 years, people have been trying to solve what the Enigma is. Essentially, the piece is a theme, which is then followed by 14 variations, each of which are intended to depict his friends. He even says they depict my friends therein. Friends, circle of musical colleagues. He extracted in musical miniatures their character or something about them that he wanted to portray. In one case, it's actually not the character himself, but it's his bulldog named Dan, who has a misfortune in a river. But what he did with this, he unifies them as much. Any variations, a set of variations, is unified by a theme, and the theme itself, in part, I think, is an element of the Enigma. It's easy to think each of these movements is headed by a set of initials, CAE, or a word, Troita, or a name from the Bible, Nimrod, or in one case, just 3 asterisks. And it's easy to think that that's the Enigma, but it really isn't, because he was quite forthcoming on all except the 3 asterisks about who they were related to. The real Enigma is the theme itself. The word Enigma was written in the score over the first 6 bars by Elgar's literary agent. And the theme begins this way, with a short, long rhythmic pattern and a falling third that then goes up 1 step and falls again. It's this. Now that rhythmic pattern, short, long, actually encodes Elgar's name, Edward Elgar. And that he then immediately turns that around and goes long, short. And those elements, those rhythmic elements and melodic elements, unify the piece, and they're treated in vastly different ways, but they are the thread that ties everything together. But they are representative of Elgar himself. Elgar, at this point in his life and when he began these, was literally in the same sort of spot that Beethoven was when he lost his hearing. And Elgar was from the country. He was not respected in London. He was outside the social circle. And he was very frustrated in the fact that he could not be taken seriously for his music. And he was literally ready to quit. He'd even written an article to one of the newspapers that said, basically, so long you've had all you get from me, I'm going back and doing something, worthwhile. And this literary agent, Augustus Jaeger, who wrote the word Enigma, basically turned him around. He took him and emotionally slapped him around a little bit and said, look, Beethoven, he played for him the slow movement, the Pathetique Sonata, said, Beethoven created his greatest music after he lost his hearing. You can do better. And with this, Elgar began to write the variations and dedicated it, and dedicated one of the movements to Augustus Jaeger, which I'll talk about in a moment. But in the dark key of G minor, this is Elgar. And at the beginning, the theme is Elgar, and the final variation, number 14, is also Elgar, but transformed into G major, the sunny key of G major. So it's a very autobiographical statement. But now I'd like to just go through briefly and give you an idea of the character. When we'll be playing some of the music that you can hear underneath, we'll give a little snippet of each one, and you can get a sense of the character of each of these people. Now, since these are musical characterizations or portraits, miniature portraits of some of his friends, there's a wide diversity of emotional, energetic, and activity, tempo changes, and everything else. But I'll just give you a few of the highlights. After the theme, we have Variation 1, and it is entitled CAE, which stands for Caroline Alice Elgar, Elgar's wife. And she was a very important figure in his life. She was his creative, supporter. She pushed him many times to get projects done. And so physically, the first variation representing her is the closeness of those two. And her musical material comes back at the end in Variation 14, which is a representation of Elgar, shall we say, Elgar triumphant, and certainly is indicating the fact that Alice was important in that. He also represents William Meath Baker in Variation 4, who was a noted adventurer. He also had sort of that prototypical English country lord. He would walk in dressed for the day and announce to his guests, read the itinerary for the day, and then go charging out, slamming the door, and you can actually hear the musical slam. He also, in Variation 7, he depicts a friend of his, Troita Griffith, who he called the nine pin because he's very tall and skinny, but he fancied himself a piano player, but a very ham-handed one. And so this is actually a joking way of representing his piano playing skills or lack of same. Variation 9, I think, is the most famous one. It is Nimrod. Certainly it's his most famous music, and it has become in English society pretty much what Barber's Adagio for strings is in ours. Nimrod is a biblical figure who was a great hunter before the Lord, and it is dedicated, or it's a representation of Augustus Jaeger, and it's a bit of a play on his name. Augustus the Great. Jaeger in German means hunter. And it is a tribute to the person who single-handedly, other than Alice, I think, saved his career and guided him to great success. And he said at a later time to Jaeger, he says, I basically, in paraphrase, I'm sorry I wasn't able to capture the depth of who you are for me. Several other characters in here, but I think it's important to note in the finale, the Variation 14, as I said, Elgar is sort of presenting the other picture of who he is. It's Elgar triumphant. It's in G major opposed to the theme in G minor. And it's very boisterous, jovial, and at the end quite triumphant. And he weds together with his theme, the Enigma theme, now transformed into a major key. He uses Carolyn or Alice Elgar's, his wife's theme, and also Jaeger's theme from Nimrod. To indicate, I think, that the reason that he was able to triumph was the support of these two very important people. It's a remarkable piece, and even if you know nothing about the characters or the enigma or any of that, the music stands on its own as a remarkable accomplishment from a major voice in English music, and it's certainly an audience favorite. So it's a wonderful way of finalizing this program, bringing it full circle from the Brahms and traveling through the Corigliano. Hope to see you on Saturday at 8 p.m. at the Zeiterion.